Sometimes we're the ones ourselves, we're very good at putting up barriers and telling ourselves why we can't do something. It's really up to us, and there's no reason why any one of our students, no matter which position that they're in, can't remove any of those barriers. There's just so many different resources that the university has to help support our students, and then there's so many internal strengths that each student has personally that can help themselves get out of whatever situation that they find themselves in that's challenging.
Welcome to the UMGC podcast, Unstoppable Stories, with your host, Nathan James.
All right, everybody. It's good to see you. It's Nathan here. I'm here with Matthew Ruchie. Matthew, thanks for being on today. Love his story. He's a first generation college student and has a story of overcoming depression, overcoming a 1.08 GPA to earn his degree. He is a UMGC alumni with us and actually works with UMGC in Europe as a logistics supervisor. He does amazing work over there. Actually, Matthew, I'd like to start with that. Tell us about what you do and the core of what your mission is.
Thanks. I really enjoy being here on today's program, and I couldn't be more excited about the invite. But I'll talk a little bit about my role and what I do. So I'm a logistics supervisor for our UMGC in Europe division. And there's not many logistics supervisors that we have within the university, and there's really shouldn't be too much, right? The core of what I do is to get the right people to the right location, the right supplies at the right time. So a lot of rights. And really, when we have such a focus in the Europe division on having or providing that on-site class experience for our military affiliated students. Uh, and it could be working with my regional director and thinking about how can we get the limited amount of collegiate faculty that we have assigned to us to teach or be in the best position to teach the most amount of students. And sometimes that is um, also thinking about strategically what type of technology and equipment we have at different locations. How can we broadcast one faculty member to another location? It could be working with our part-time adjunct faculty and then thinking about like how could we get them from point A to point B? Does this require any country clearances? Does this require transportation? And just being the expert on that. And then also thinking about the supplies and different costs associated with that in order to really help maximize really bringing the on-site education experience to several different locations.
Absolutely. Yeah. Folks, I mean, it's easy to forget that classrooms, when you're expanding across Europe in particular, have to be set up, right? Technology has to be set up, computers, internet has to be provided. Those things literally have to be put in place. And that's Matthew Ruchie, folks, coordinating those efforts and that's amazing. That's amazing. Well, let's go back to this fact that you are a first generation college student for your family. I want to start there. What inspired you, right, to pave the way there, right? I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, well, I suppose it really did goes to a couple of different mentors that I had growing up, right? Like I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to be or what I wanted to do after high school. Like I did think that I really wanted to change like kind of my future outcome. Like I didn't and I thought the best way to that was, school and education. And I thought particularly because my parents didn't have that type of background, that was a way for me to move on and maybe better myself for just my own family and maybe future generations, and give myself like the best ability to really do what I wanted to do, which is funny when I think about it because then I went to a private university right after high school because I thought that was going to be the best thing for me. And then I absolutely didn't like it and I hated it. So I still had the idea that I wanted to either study really business or psychology. And there was a couple different factors I didn't like about it. I didn't like I felt like that was just a number on campus and it was very hard to make connections with people. Um, and I felt like I could be doing something more. And then I also got my first bill, like after like my first 2 semesters. I was like, oh my
Oh
gosh,
boy.
this is like super expensive. And just being a first generation student, you don't really think about that. And like you get kind of this narrative, like, oh, after you graduate high school, the next logical thing is to go to college, right? And that wasn't great for me because I didn't really have an end goal in mind. But after I got the bill, I was like, well, I need to get this paid for. So then I was like, well, let's join the military branch,
Ah,
and that's how I
yeah.
first ended up in Germany. Like I talked to one of my friends, still a good friend today, but he joined the Army Reserve. And I had nobody in my family that ever did the military, so I just didn't know anything. But at least I had the sensibility to ask him, like, "Hey, what do you? I'm thinking about joining the army or the military. What do you think?" He's like, "Yeah, that's great." And he's like, "You absolutely should not join the army." I was like, okay. Which, looking back, I think the branches, like, they all have their pluses and minuses, and there's no bad thing about the army that I couldn't have done. But I was more interested in the Air Force because I had this desire to, like, I'm from Minnesota. I wanted to see the world. And that's I think education and travel are some of the primary reasons a lot of folks end up joining the military. So I was like, well, if I'm going to do the military, I want to be stationed overseas in a place that I've never thought I'd ever get to, which is Germany. So I naively joined thinking like, oh, I'm going to join the Air Force because, they have Ramstein Air Base there. That's the largest overseas base. I knew that. And I didn't think that that would absolutely happen that way, but I lucked out and it did. And I think those different desires, and plus after I joined the military, um, the I found the sense of belonging or the higher purpose that I wanted to do. I wanted to be able to contribute, to society and something more. And I thought the whole college thing would be over, because I left college to get in the military, and then I found out, like, from a good mentor, like, oh no, you really do need to do college to promote and get anywhere in the military. And military really values an education. So that's how I actually found my way back to, or at first with UMGC, is I had a NCO, and then commission officer, pretty much take me by the ear and walk me over to the education center and said, like, you are going to sign up now.
Look at
So
that. And then
that,
and that was
that,
it. And the rest is
yeah,
history.
that's it. Yeah, the rest is history. It all went swimmingly from there.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I know while you were in the Air Force, you were a mental health specialist, right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Like that was part of what, um, the little that I did know about the military. I had a high school teacher that I really connected with, and he was a psychology instructor. And I thought, like, oh, every time we talk about psychology or Freud, like, I think I'm very interested in that. So when went to join the Air Force, I had two goals in mind. I wanted to be stationed overseas, ideally in Germany, and I wanted to work in mental health. And luckily, I did well enough on the military entrance exam, like to score and really have some options available. I told a recruiter I wasn't going to sign a contract without that job guaranteed. So I knew I was coming in working mental health because I think that's like a core part of my identity. I'm always trying to figure out how to, help people or help others. Um, and yeah, so I had that experience, and I'm so glad that I did, like, in the Air Force, and they taught me a lot of different skills I wouldn't have had the opportunity at all to think about and really meet different mental health providers. Like, there's psychologists, there's psychiatric nurses, psychiatrists, social workers that I all worked with, and that got me exposed to just a lot of different professions a first generation student like me who just wouldn't have had, and I think that was a blessing in disguise.
Mental health is such a critical topic. I want to get your feedback on this. I mean, in the military, as well, in a unique way, you've often compared mental health treatment to getting an oil change before the engine
Yes, yeah.
stalls, right? And breaks down. So why is it so difficult for service members to take that approach to mental health for their own well-being, right? Where they're being proactive before something, before spiraling, right?
Well, I think there's a number of factors. Like, I think the largest one is like the stigma attached with seeking mental health treatment. Like, people in military members in particular think that there's going to be some career actions, negative career actions, like for seeking mental health. Like some people are in positions where they hold a top secret clearance, or they might be working on particular programs that requires a higher threshold to remove them from duty, and people want to feel like they belong, right? So like if you think of military police or an Air Force Security Forces member, right? Like they are armed up like during the day, like or during their shift. So if they come into the mental health clinic and say like, "Hey, I'm struggling, like I'm having these thoughts of depression or thoughts of harming myself or other people," it's incumbent on mental health to say like, "Hey, yeah, like we might want to take them off of duty status and remove their weapon," right? It's not a great mix to have somebody to have access to a weapon and be depressed. And short term, like that's like a great thing for them, but then the member might feel like, oh, now I'm being punished because the military is, all about conformity. So like other members in that unit might see that person as like, oh, this is somebody that can't do their job. So then they might start picking on that person. Or like when it comes to annual performance reviews, it's like, well, you were on non-duty status and you weren't able to help with the fight, or we weren't able to deploy you because which makes sense, we can't deploy you if you're not able to arm up, right? So um so some people are like, oh, well, I went to mental health and I had this negative action, right? And if it's successful, right, like you are depressed and you learn a little bit about yourself and you learn different coping skills for your particular situation, you might be, we'll give you the weapon back. Well, we would recommend that, right, to your, and not mental health, but like to the security forces commander or the garrison commander and such. Like, but then some people don't view like, oh, yeah, there's that short term thing in order to get you long term better, right? So, that's always the car example. I always try to break that up because I feel like it's very non threatening if I say, like, hey, if you are driving a car around and you hear some knocks and some noises that shouldn't be there, like you would take it to the mechanic, right? And the mechanic's gonna be like, oh, like you should consider an oil change, and maybe you want, here are the different options of oil that you can have. And short term it costs more money to constantly get oil changes, but long term your car is going to run better, more efficiently and more effectively, right? The more often that you take care of it and maintenance. So and if you think, for me personally, I really resonate with that idea. Like, yeah, let's not take the stigma, or I should think about a different way to approach mental health. Like, if it's preventive maintenance, it's often easier to get things done, right? Like, I'd rather have the oil change than I throw a rod in my engine and now I need a whole engine rebuild. That's going to take a lot more time and money. And at that point, you'd be like, oh, I need a new car. But with mental health, if we think about like, oh, things get worse and worse before you come in, it's harder to get better, right? Like, so, and you can't really replace an engine. There's only one brain we have, like, or only one body. So, like that. So the preventative stuff that we have to do, like maybe taking a walk in the sunlight, or like taking advantage of daylight, or playing, like me, I like to play tennis, like with some friends, or I'll play ice hockey or something. Like that's the kind of the preventative maintenance of the stuff I enjoy doing, and that's what I need to do in order to feel good, to be, tip top shape for not only for my job, but like for like just personally, like how I interact with my wife, or I don't have kids, but my dog. So yeah, that preventative. I just think preventative maintenance is always so much easier, and I see that too. With students, like when I was a student, right? We mentioned, I think earlier, that I had a pretty bad GPA at one point with the university, and that kind of prevented me. I might not have been able to graduate, right? So it's like, well, if I would have spoke up and saw some sort of advice or counseling earlier, it would have been way easier than me continuing to fail classes or not show up to class. So, like, it wouldn't have taken me really serious intervention for me, an effort to like repair the damage that I did to my own grades in order to, you know, graduate, which was kind of the goal initially when I was thinking about joining the military. Is like, oh, I want to better myself and I want this education and I want to travel, right? So that's why I keep going back to the idea of preventative maintenance is always
Mm,
better and easier than
yeah,
being proactive.
yeah, absolutely. And this did get personal for you during this
Mhm.
transition out of the military, right? I mean, you
Yes. Yeah.
described as falling into a deep depression, right? And that
Yes.
being connected to not doing well academically. right? I think there's a writing class that you failed multiple times, right? And the
Yes. Yeah, yeah.
GPA dropped to the 1.8 that I mentioned before, and there was a spiral happening there, right? And you've already kind of alluded to it. For you, what was the way out, right? I mean, take me to that point. You're at the bottom, you've spiraled. How did you even begin to see what the way out was to get to the point where you are today?
Well, I really had to lean on first my like personal support network, which like for me was my wife, right? And then there were other people that were in a similar position to me. Like I was kind of as I got out the military, what I ended up doing was I was working full time and at a hotel, like to maintain an ID card in order to take classes, right? And that was important to me. And there was other people similar to me that were vets that were students with UMGC that were doing the same thing. Um, and I've told them, and I think often like how do you gain insight? Sometimes you don't see what's going on within yourself, right? But others can see things more easily than you sometimes, right? So, like, I was pretty upfront with my coworkers at the time, like, oh, I want to do this, I want to go to school full time, and they were the first ones to notice, like, hey, I didn't see you like at the ed center or in class the other night, like, what's going on? Like, and I was filled with a lot of shame. I didn't want to tell anybody what was going on. Like, I'm having a hard time getting out of bed after work. Like, I'm pretty depressed. Like, this is not what I imagined my life to be. So like, and then I leaned on my wife and I finally like had an open conversation with her, what's going on. And she's like, well, and she was quite helpful. She saw a different way to approach it than I did. She's like, well, I see that the university has academic advisors. Like, you might want to just talk over this. Cause like, I thought I was in a really deep spiral with like, oh my gosh, I failed this writing class. It's a core class. It's, I think, writing 112. Like, and I think almost every student with a bachelor's degree needs writing 112. And I also found out like I couldn't register for the class by myself anymore. Like I needed like to get an exception policy and a waiver approval to do that. So like I was like once I found out like, oh, I literally cannot proceed with my academic career without uh seeking support from an academic advisor. Like all right, like all that kind of coalesced into like, well, let me go to this meeting and see if it's helpful. And to be honest, when I first made the meeting, I didn't think that I was going to be helpful at all. And the advisor was so positive that I worked with. Like, I remember she asked me, like, oh, well, what do you want to do? And it's similar to what I talked about at the beginning of this interview. Like, oh, I want to be the first person to graduate. Um, in my family, right? And like I was like, what I really want to do is like I worked with psychologists and social workers. Like I want to help people, like, and I don't think that there's a way to do that. And all that negative talk that I had, the advisor said you can absolutely do that, right? And talked about there's just tons of different things I didn't know that you could do. I didn't know that you could retake classes. And really delete and repeat that for to raise your GPA, right? And then I was like, well, I can't. So she's like, well, like let's take this at one thing at a time. Like, well, redo this writing class. Like, here's some other supports that you can have, and then we'll start coming up with a game plan to go over all the other failing classes that you have. Like, and maybe like let's focus on completing the bachelor's degree because like. I at the heart of it, I'm a very motivated person. I was like, well, I can't even get into graduate school, so what's the point? And she said, like, look, don't even focus on that. Like, um, as we raise your GPA, I'll connect you with somebody that can talk about graduate school, and there might be some possibilities for you, right? And there absolutely was. So like that was the stuff where I started to build momentum and started believing in myself more and more as I retook the class, like with writing and like that actually helped me feel better and not as depressed. Like, oh, I can go to class and I can do this. I'm building confidence. So, like, I think that was. I always talk about failing 4 times because the important thing was I tried a fifth time and got it right, and and not even got that right. Like, completed that degree, went on a couple other like another degree, and now I'm in another degree program now. So now I can't stop writing, right? And it's something that like, oh, it's a skill. Any of these things that we learn in university, like, or it's a skill that we can develop and grow. You don't have to be the best at writing. Like, well, I think the most important thing is like getting the help, having others recognize and encourage you, like, hey man, like what's going on? Like, being open with people, and just really committing to kind of what my value and my goals were, right? And that's what helped me through that.
Wonderful. Yeah, and it does sound like that appointment, that first appointment that you had with, the UMGC advisor in Europe, right?
Mhm.
Um,
Yes, yeah.
was pivotal, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that person still works with, us in the Europe division, just no longer as an advisor, and, I think I embarrass them all the time. It's, right now it's Miss Julie Novakowski, like, she actually works in our headquarters, and, sometimes I just message her every 6 or 7 months, like, "You were the best advisor I ever had." Just, like, to remind her, like, the impact that she had, right? Like, she might regret that now that I'm working with us, like, she didn't think that was a possibility.
No, that's great, Julie, amazing job, great job, and Matthew, I'm just thinking how, uh, the perseverance it takes, right?
Mhm.
Not being able to pass a class after 3 or 4 times, that's intimidating, right? And especially
Yeah.
as first, you're the first in your family to be a college student, it can be like, "Well, maybe I'll try something else," right? It can be easy to say, "That's my cue, I'll see myself out," right?
Yeah.
But that wasn't the path you took, Matthew, and,
No.
you got to the other side of it, and, like you said, I like how you said it, "Can't stop writing now."
Yeah. Exactly, yeah.
There's an unstoppable momentum that you have even now is, currently, I think you're going for your doctorate, so we'll get to that in
Correct.
a moment. I'll
Yeah.
wanna say real quick, once again, to everybody listening, you're listening to Matthew Ruchie, on Unstoppable Stories. So just wanna remind you, don't forget to like or subscribe and subscribe, to Unstoppable Stories. We've got episodes for you, that actually go back, even to season 1. We're in season 2 now. But make sure that you don't miss out. Okay. So Matthew, let's keep it going. So
Mhm.
um, look, you went from basically sweeping floors,
Mhm.
to eventually becoming a logistics supervisor as you are now, right? For the Europe
Yes.
division. So you had this military background that you brought with you. How did that military background, do you think, prepare you to manage educational sites across Germany? And we were
Mm.
talking a little bit earlier, even before the recording, about Poland and the expansion efforts there. But did the military background help you doing what you're doing now?
I think absolutely. I think, there's just a couple of different, like, skills that I learned and things that, experiences that I had that really helped prepare me for, being in the position I am today. Like, I think, the perseverance that you talked about earlier, I think that's something that I learned in a military context, right? Like, I remember, any military members went through basic training, and you kind of get drilled into you like, hey, I can do anything for like 2 minutes, or I can do anything for 5 minutes, right? Whether it's like this pain, like this push-ups, or like this run, or like ruck march, like, and then it's taking that attitude like, oh, why can't I apply that to what I'm doing now? There's no limit to why I could not, right? So, and I think, it was kind of that experience with that I mentioned before with the that I had with our advising team that really made me think about like, oh, how could I take some of these strengths that I have and apply it now? And the other thing, two other things, I guess. I know one of our core values at UMGC is really to like is to optimize agility, and I think about that all the time. Like, and to me, like that's your ability to pivot quickly, right? And then also the military experience when I worked mental health or substance abuse counseling, I learned that there's no such. I mean, there's very limited things on what's a real emergency, right? Like, and sometimes you get very stressed out or in the moment, like, oh, things are going to go wrong here or there, and to take a step back and have perspective, like, hey, this isn't really an emergency and we can get around this, right? Like, um, so I think some of my experience has been like, it's been wonderful. I've been asked to help get some new education centers off the ground in Poland, and that's just been running into different barriers, just some comical ones like that you wouldn't have thought of at all, right? But being able to go back to like, all right, what's the objective or the mission? My mission is like logistics. It's to get to the right people and right supplies, the right materials at the right location, right time. Like, so how can I do that? Like, there's been times where I thought I could get. taking all this equipment, I'm throwing it in a multi-van. I'm going to bring all these computers and internet, and I'm bringing the faculty member, and like I'm going to set up this class. And then I remember went out to this forward operating station in Poland, and they're like, "Hey, we're not allowing any vehicles on the post at this time." It's like, oh my gosh, like how am I going to, like, what is there to do now? So like just take a step back, but like, all right, well, I can't drive the equipment on, but I could walk it on, So it's like, all right, well, how many trips this is turned into an easy job to like it's just gonna take, 10 or 12 trips to get all the equipment out and to the location. And we can do that one at a time, right? So it's
Goodness.
that ability to pivot, it's like, all right, well, and also asking for help too, like, that's a nice thing. After like the first 2 or 3 times, all the soldiers on the forward operating station are like, "Hey, man, do you need help?" Well, yes, in fact, I do. Like, now that you guys are gonna offer help, that, you see me, like, kinda committed to doing this, like, yeah, like, can we, open up the car and get all this equipment out? So it's like not it's kind of just thinking about like, oh, how can we get this done? And and that turned into, getting a lot of goodwill with the soldiers there. Like,
Mm,
oh, what are you doing? And "Oh, I'm here, and I'm bringing the faculty member here. We have this class this weekend, so got other people interested because." And I think it's sort of like, yeah, I've been in the military. Like, hey, who's this guy, in civilian clothing walking out? What's he doing? So, and then just sparking that interest. So, I think all those things and like the military experience really enabled me to be like, oh, I should have the confidence to ask for help, like, and realize this is an emergency. Like, I can't get the car or and all my equipment on. So, there's just another way to do it. Right. So,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
approaching things from that manner has been, I think,
Sure.
incredibly helpful.
Sure.
Right.
All right. So amazing. And it's story time now. There's a couple stories I wanted you to get
Yeah.
into really quickly. You were telling me earlier the story about the one Polish soldier. I think he was a little bit older that you ran into.
Yeah.
Uh, y- Go for it. Go for it.
Yeah, so, uh, we would like to, as we were expanding, to our different, locations in Poland, like, it would have been ideal to always take, 5 or 6 people with us, but, like, at the end of the day, you have your operating budget and that it can allow for 1 person or 2 people, so sometimes there's a little bit of gap or turnover. And so, like, I remember the first time I went out there, I was, to one of our locations. It was the first time I'd been, and, I didn't know that there was just different procedures, like, and I like the US military, we've been in Germany for a very long time, since the end of World War II. We haven't left, right? And, stuff's very established, and it's our military installation, so I have an access card, I know I can present it to the gate, and then I'll get on. And, um, just there was no way of really knowing, that, like, okay, you can't really just walk on even with the access card to this is a run by the Polish military, and we're a guest here now. So, and there was some stuff lost, definitely in translation. But the thing that was not lost was when I was started walking towards an area that I wasn't supposed to. Then all of a sudden the Uzi comes out and is pointing at me. It's like, whoa, whoa, I'm here with the university, right? Like, please, like, point me where I need to go, So, and it's just like, just comical stuff like that. Like, all right, at least I didn't get shot today, like, I didn't think I'd go down like this. Um, things ended up working out, and that was just a fun story. And then as I get other, like now I'm in the position where I get send other people out to Poland to help support our mission and our expansion there. And I just remind them, like, make sure that you're listening to instructions and go to the window first and wear a guest. Like, don't get an Uzi pulled on you and such like that.
Don't get That's the moral of the story that will definitely pull
Yeah,
people on you, right? Don't
yeah.
think you can pull on you. Okay, what about the story where you drove for 9 hours at one point
Mm,
with mobile internet and were camping out at a post office, right? Just to secure chapel for your students to be able to study and learn in.
yeah. So that was another thing. So, after that time, or the time that occurred with the Uzi, I think it was like on the same trip. The primary objective there was to get enough students to enroll in a class, right? And we were aiming for 14 or 15 students that, like, not only to sign up and enroll, but get registered and need a class. So we've identified a class that we could run, and it's one of our foundational gen ed courses, Introduction to Library Studies, Libs 150. And I love talking about that class, and I think everybody, even if they sometimes have transfer credits in, they could use that class just from the skills and the stuff that you learn from that. But anyway, um, I worked out a deal, like, oh, okay, we're going to get conference room space because we didn't have an education center at that time. And then the next time I roll up there with all the equipment, um, I go to pick up the key for the conference room, and I saw the military had other plans with the conference room. They're like, "Oh, we need it for this time." I was like, "Oh my gosh!" Like now we don't have any place to instruct for this weekend. We have all these like soldiers signed up. This is going to be horrible. And it was the first class that we were running, so um, I use that skill to like the pivoting and optimize agility. I just was like, well, let me go walk around. Like the FOS isn't that large. Maybe I can find something else. Like, and I just saw captain, and I saw that he had a little chaplain corps badge on his uniform. I was like, okay, well, I know this is chaplain, and that everybody loves the chaplains, and he knows everything and about this installation. So let me just ask the chaplain, like, hey, here's chaplain. I'm Matthew. I'm trying to get this class, and I just lost classroom space. Would you know who I could? I started with a small ask. Would you know who I could talk to, like, or anything that could help us out? And chaplain was so nice. He's like, well, when's the class? I'm like, oh, it's Saturday. He's like, well, that's great. Like, you can use our base chapel. Like, I think we have all the audio visual equipment there. I was like, oh man, now I don't even have to haul a bunch of stuff out here. This is going to turn out way better. So, uh, yeah, like, so that ended up working out. Like, it was a hardened structure, which not everything was. And then I was just, like we ran into a different problem with the internet, but like I was able to solve that's a different story that's much longer. But I tested the internet capabilities out in chapel, and like I think this can work. So, and that's absolutely what we did. We just pivoted to reserving that space, and that class was the first class that we ever ran out in Poland. And that's just because a lot of it I mean, I was there with some other help, but just leaning on my experience, I'm like, all right, I know running into a problem. Let me go find the chaplain, or let me go talk to an officer, like, and we'll figure this out. Yeah, because people are more supportive of education than you think, right? So, like, when I think we have a lot of cachet, like, hey, we're a university, and we want to help educate people. Like, and I think when you approach things that way, it's easier to get things
Yeah.
done.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
seeing that agility and that resilience,
Yeah.
in play, right? Okay. So, all right, you end up turning, you turned your academics around, obviously, and went on to graduate with your bachelor's degree in psychology, which fits the bill, right? Just with the mental health
Yeah.
background that you had and the
Yeah.
mental health passion that you have, which is really neat. And I know you went on to get your master's too, but um, in the process, you had to learn to navigate complex VA, right? Veteran Affairs policies, right?
Yes.
Like, for example, retroactive induction or whatnot. But without getting too much in the weeds on that, I know there were complicated VA policies, but how did you figure out to leverage those benefits though, to actually fully fund the doctoral program that you're in right now, which is great.
I think it's like a personal, like almost a personal superpower. Like when people tell me no, and I think they're wrong, like it's a good and bad thing. Like I will do everything in my power to prove that people are wrong. Like uh, like I would talk to other vets, and they would say, I love the veteran community. And sometimes I think the veteran community is its own worst enemy. Sometimes, like, people are like, oh, this won't work, and don't even ask. And like, I'm like, no, I really think that this could work. So, like, I'm very passionate about, like, well, and it's just a skill that I think any of us can learn. And I talked about Libs 150. It talks about really the core of the class is talking about like where to find reliable sources and such.
Mm,
So like, um, and to me, like, it was all right. Well, what's governing this VA education program? And it's like 38 CFR, right? Like, well, all right. Here's the source document, and then let me read through this for the relevant things, and then I can get really good at Control F on a keyboard and find what I need to. Like I heard this, so it's coming up with different search terms. So really applying the skills that I learned through the university, and thinking like, all right, well, let me actually read what's going on, and then like, oh, how can I use that for my situation? And then it's just another another thing too is and not being afraid to ask. It's sometimes, I think, a very challenging thing that I learned in the military. Like, you get kind of, or I got afraid in my military career to ask for things, right? Because you want to be seen as a competent leader, or like you don't want to ask the wrong question sometimes because then you'll get smoked out or something. So, and that's definitely something that I needed to learn and develop, was the ability to not be afraid to ask people that I think are in a position of authority or could help me. So, like, just asking like a veterans readiness and employment counselor, like, hey, I think I qualify for this based off of this. And then, you know, I learned make other people's jobs as easy as possible, right? Like I said, the exact portion in the 38 CFR that was relevant to me. And then that person came back, my VRE counselor, like, hey, yeah, you're absolutely right. I'll support this. Like, so, like, just being able to do that and connect with those right people and asking and all those skills, like, enabled me to, like, yeah, I got my bachelor's degree paid for with veteran benefits. I got my master's degree paid for with veteran benefits, and I'll have the doctorate paid for with veteran benefits. So, like, I think it goes back to, that's my other skill, is like the ability to persevere. Like, I want to find and be able to maximize, what I can to, yeah, I really do believe that education is a way to um, give yourself all the options, right? Like, if I don't think the university will end tomorrow, but if it did, like, I'm certainly educated and I could pivot into a lot of different roles or jobs if I wanted to. Like, and that's now my choice rather than the military used to tell me what I'm doing and where I'm going and for how long.
Oh boy. Yeah. I mean, I'm seeing multiple superpowers at work here, right?
Yeah, it's
Which
true.
is, yeah, that's really neat. And I love how I appreciate how your optimism and open-mindedness, even if folks are saying, I don't think it's going to work out, really help pave the path, right? Understanding how these VA benefits work, it opened the door to taking your education to the next level, beyond the bachelor's, beyond the master's, now doctorates, right? The
Correct.
sky's the limit, and okay, I love seeing it. I love seeing it. So let me ask you this. So you've been open about having discovered you had ADHD, right? Severe ADHD, right? And you started using AI actually to map out your study blocks, right? And
Correct.
prevent burnout. And that's a big topic, right? Burnout, with folks
Yes.
multiply, balancing 1,000 things at the same time, like everybody's doing. So just curious, how has that offloading that mental load, right? uh,
Mhm.
to AI planning change your ability to balance work and personal time? I really think a lot of people could benefit from this.
Yeah, I mean, I really have embraced AI and how I can use that, right? There's just a lot of different things that I do. Like, I like to, I mean, when I talk about this idea of preventative maintenance, right? Like, having blocking off schedules of my time to make sure that I'm engaging in self care is pretty important. Another side effect, or like a primary way ADHD always exhibits itself, is I like to keep and be busy, right? So I'm always doing something. I'm working on a project or a task. I'm studying. I like to be really engaged with like tennis matches or ice hockey games and such, or I'm traveling for my work. So, and I enjoy all that. That actually plays into, the little bit of my ADHD. Like, I have this hyperactivity. So sometimes, or not sometimes, quite often, what I'll do, especially now as it comes to studies, like I definitely leverage it by I download. Well, first thing, I download everything I can that's uploaded to the online classroom, the learning environment online, or your Leo, and primarily I download the syllabus. Um, and the syllabus is nice, and it's a helpful, like, found, or a good document to prompt AI with. And it's not perfect. But I come up with, like, oh, here's the gives you the class lengths and times, and it gives you the projects, right? So I do that, and I'm very meticulous about putting things in my personal and professional calendars. So I'll just download those as PDFs, um, and then I'll upload all those to AI, and I'll give it a prompt, and I'll say, like, "Hey, I'm traveling from these dates to these dates, and I have this and this. Here's my course syllabus. Can you come up with ideas of where to block?" study hours and then come up with a suggested uh, schedule for me to engage in discussion posts and submit my assignments. Like, and I will do that. It's not always perfect, and then sometimes like my plans change too. But I found that super helpful because my mind, I just know the way it works. It's fairly disorganized, and sometimes I have to refer back to documents multiple times to understand what am I doing today or what do I need to do, and then just being having this document like, oh, it's kind of my roadmap for the next 8 weeks, right? Like I used to really struggle during my undergraduate with deadlines and such, like because AI really wasn't a thing now. But like now, I use that like, oh yeah, I can do this here and there, and it like a few months ago, uh, I was traveling. Went from Frankfurt, Germany, on an airplane to Washington D.C. so I could attend an in-person residency weekend. And part of that, there was still homework to turn in and stuff to do. And AI was giving me really good things like, "Hey, at this particular airport, there's a lounge that you could check in and work on your homework there and use the Wi-Fi. So you could use this opportunity when you're waiting for 3 hours, like for your flight." I was like, oh man, that like I wouldn't have even thought about that. So like it, so now sometimes that's I've learned, as a study aid, that's really helpful. Like it even broke up like on the airplane. Your flight is 7 hours. I would download these chapters to read in your material. So then that way you can highlight and study that while you're in transit. I'm like, oh, this is genius, right? So it really helped alleviate a lot of anxiety that I've had about taking classes. Be like, oh, how can I manage this, or where will I find the time to really, find those pockets in my schedule that really work for me?
That's neat. That's like having like a virtual assistant, a virtual secretary that's with you wherever
Yeah.
you go, right?
Yeah, I would I hope a lot of our current students listen to this podcast because I love telling or sharing that story because I just think it's a way that not all of our students are always tracking too, or even our faculty members and such. Like, and I think that's a for me it's been a great tool for it's been a great study tool, and it's really helped even just with something that I can't change about myself. I can't change that there won't ever be a time now where I don't have ADHD, right? But it does change, like, that now this is a new tool for me to cope with it. It makes it so much easier.
Yeah, yeah. Talk about a game changer.
Yeah.
That's so good. All right. So for the student, right? Speaking of students, for the student that's listening right now, right? That might be failing a class, right? For the third or fourth time, I don't care, second, third, fourth time, and feels like they don't belong in higher education as a result, right? Like, this isn't for me. I have to ask you and give you the chance to give folks in that situation advice based on what you've been through. What's your message to them about being unstoppable in that way?
And my message would be sometimes we're the ones ourselves, we're very good at putting up barriers and telling ourselves why we can't do something, right? And it's really up to us, and there's no reason why any one of our students, no matter which position that they're in, can't remove any of those barriers. There's just so many different resources that the university has to help support um, our students, and then there's so many internal strengths that each student has personally um, that can help themselves get out of the situation or whatever situation that they find themselves in that's challenging, right? And I think the challenges that our students face like end up being, I think, the largest learning lessons in their academic career. It's what really helps prepare them for whatever goal that they have. Like education's always a journey and often a journey to get to somewhere else. And there's not unfortunately there's not one thing in my undergrad in psychology from UMGC that I would say helps me at my job right now. Like, do I know principles of social psychology and how, the Kitty Genovese story or Pavlov's dog? Certainly. But that's not the primary thing that I learned. What I've learned, or the best thing was, is all right, I ran into these challenges and how can I reach out to my professors and ask for assistance or accommodations, or how can I lean on the academic advisors? Like, how could I use the librarian to find a piece of research, or if I'm stuck? These are all different things, and being first generation student, unfortunately, you don't really even realize like, oh, the university has all these things. Like it's like learning a different language, higher education, right? Um, so that's why stop being your own worst enemy and think like and enable yourself and empower yourself and think about what strengths do you personally have to remove that barrier. Right? Like, I know I was depressed and I get depressed sometimes, or I have ADHD, like, but there's ways I can remove these barriers for myself, right? I could always ask for more assistance. I can meet with the faculty member, right? I could lean on my military experience, like, and just think, like, hey, man, I can do anything for 2 minutes. I could do anything for 8 weeks, right? And I think you'll surprise yourself, like, by how resilient you are when you stop thinking about what's preventing me from doing this and start thinking and changing that mindset to, well, how could I overcome or how can I be unstoppable? Right. And I think changing that and thinking about that as a strength, like really helps you speak to a story, like your own story. And that's what, and you can take that. And I think after, I really do believe after people graduate, whether it's an associate's, a bachelor's, a master's, each level, each new degree, you have more responsibility to impart that and ethical, moral responsibility to impart these lessons onto others and help your community, right? And just being open about that, like, and also, I guess people really enjoy authenticity and people being genuine, right? So I've also learned not to shy away from here's all the mistakes that I made and such. Like, and at the end of the day, I like to think that people want to be helpful. So if you reach out to somebody at the university, um, people find themselves in higher education because they want to help and they enjoy helping. Like nobody's making really top dollar around here. Like people have a passion to help, right? So, and I think that's very encouraging. So, like if once you reach out, if you ask for help, the worst that somebody's going to say is no, right? And I often don't find no's an answer around here. Like oftentimes it's a well, here's the right direction or here are things to consider that can arm and equip you with the tools to, succeed. So that, we got to remove our own barriers. That's really, I think, the takeaway or what I would have to help people that are in a situation like that to become unstoppable.
Well said. Well said. And I appreciate it, Matthew. Thanks for taking time to share your journey and your story with us. I've appreciated every moment, and I also appreciate just your commitment to learning, your commitment to leaning on others where needed, right? Whether it be faculty, whether it be your wife, advisors, whatever, that the support structure, right, as well, to get to the next finish line. There's so much I know folks can take away with it from this. So I appreciate it. And I know we'll be in touch.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah,
Thanks.
yeah, of course. And for everybody listening and watching, please remember to like and subscribe to see more unstoppable stories just like Matthew's. Remember, we have previous episodes as well, previous seasons. So make sure you go back and engage with those. And just remember, we're here for you until next time. Okay. Thanks.